Good evening and welcome to the Temecula Community Services Commission regular meeting for March 8th, 2021. I'm Chair Eric Levine and I will bring this meeting to order. And with that, Commissioner Krastevsky, flag salute.
Everyone place their hand over their heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. And now for the roll call. Ms. Dominguez?
That's me. Commissioner Krastevsky?
Here.
Commissioner Adi?
Here.
Commissioner Sizemore?
Here.
Vice Chair Ruiz?
Here.
And Chair Levine.
I am here.
Okay. Thank you.
Excellent. And public comments this evening. What do we have for tonight?
We do have one public comment from Mr. Rick Vanderlinden regarding the budget. We were going to read that during the budget engagement session, though.
That sounds great. All right, we are like halfway through and only just a couple of minutes. So I don't know, we'll see how this goes. Let's start with some division reports. We have some new faces for this evening. I think we're starting with Miss Leah Juarez.
Hello, good evening, everybody. It's nice to see everyone. And as soon as this is up here, we will go ahead and get started. Okay, great. So we are going to start here with Aquatics. Aquatics continues to be booked and very busy. Gwen, Melissa, and Kristen recently attended the annual Aquatics Professional Conference. It was virtually this year. In addition, they attended the Diversity Summit. And so from there, they just learned a lot of really valuable information in regards to the aquatics industry and best practices. Also, Aquatics will be holding their first tryout clinic later on this month, March 20th. Oh, there we go. Later on this month, March 20th. And this is to help potential employees and their parents to learn about the hiring process. And I mentioned their parents because many of the lifeguards are ages 16 to 17. And so the parent involvement is vital in terms of getting employed. So that workshop is going to be held later on this month. And for February training topics, Aquatics trains on CPR, emergency oxygen, which also involves using the bag valve mask. Very important during the COVID era. That way, lifeguards do not have to provide mouth-to-mouth or mouth-to-mask, so they can have more separation if they needed to rescue a victim. And then lastly, you can see the February attendance figures, which just truly illustrates how busy Aquatics continues to be. Thank you. Next is the contract class division. So classes continue to go on, primarily outdoors, some are virtual. So upcoming for this month, March, a new class that's being added is Busy Bags. And that is basically a bag of supplies that are mailed to the family and for younger children to help with their development. And then a class that is returning this month are Bigfoot's art classes, which are held outdoors at the Civic Center patio. Okay, next is me. I'm over at the Community Recreation Center, the CRC. So we have a new event coming, a virtual 5K race called Step Into Spring. Typically in the fall, we host our annual Fit Fun Color Run, which we did last fall, but it was just a self-guided format instead of having the large race gathering at the Ronald Reagan Sports Park. And so we are following suit with this new 5K. And so basically participants will register. They will come and pick up their gear from the rec center through contactless pickup, excuse me. And then from there, they get to choose their race location, time it, and then email in their times. We'll have a leaderboard available on the website, and we'll be collecting photos for social media. Continuing on for Community Rec Center, we are having a lot of success, I should say, with our theme boxes. And so we continue to do those, and we have them planned through the summer. So for February, we had a Valentine's theme for our Teen Zone members. So they were able to pick up a box from the rec center, and it had different activities and crafts. And they had a lot of fun, and we are sold out for March, which that's going to be coming up this Saturday. We have our Zoom hangout. So this Saturday, the CRC staff, the Teen Zone staff, will be on Zoom with the participants, helping guide them through a craft. And then also we have the Tasty Tuesdays. So usually when we have our in-person after school Teen Zone open, our staff would lead cooking lessons. Our staff are all food handlers certified, but unfortunately we're not able to meet quite yet in person. So we have turned Tasty Tuesday basically into a virtual cooking lesson. So it'll be live on Zoom. We're taking 5 teens at a time, and it's almost sold out. And our first recipe for March 23rd is going to be classic pancakes. So like I said, it's free, and registrants will be able to view a video ahead of time so they can gather all of their equipment and supplies. Okay, for homeless outreach, the Help Center continues to meet every single day with clients, mail pickup, computer access, and hygiene supplies. Also, the Homeless Outreach Division has began hosting monthly meetings with Hot, Swag of CMOH and Project Touch. And then for outreach services, there's a couple of stats for February, 9 new clients, 2 street exits, and 2 people were placed in permanent housing. And also the city staff, Swag and the Hot are conducting jointly encampment visits and inspections. So that's still ongoing. And then at the bottom, you can see the winter shelter information, which again continues. It's scheduled to close April 2nd, but it may be extended through April, just depending on the demand and availability. For inclusive services, High Hope SCIP and other programs are still offered virtually on Zoom. They can connect and engage with their friends and city staff. And during February, they enjoy making bracelets and Valentine's Day cards, as well as playing a game of bingo with the staff. And the Youth Advisory Council is working on their mental health campaign to advocate for resources for the peers in the community. So that's an ongoing project. Okay, for inclusive and senior services continued. The senior meals, the curbside pickup is still going strong. To date, staff have distributed over 37,500 meals to seniors. Also, the shuttle services are operating twice a week, providing just really convenient ways for seniors to get around. And those are for seniors who don't have access to transportation. This way they can get their shopping done and have some independence. And then also on that slide, the senior services did the drive-through birthday celebration. And so just really celebrating those seniors. They enjoyed cards and flowers, hand sanitizer, blankets, and some treats from sponsors. And lastly, for senior services, the Mary Phillips Senior Center is still operating as a warm center. This is for vulnerable people, seniors, anyone disabled, really just anybody in need of temporary relief from the cold. It has been in effect since December 1st and will continue through the end of this month. And it's open every weekday from 8 to 5. For COVID-19 vaccine appointments, the Senior Center staff have been helping seniors stay informed with updates regarding the COVID-19 vaccine, and also providing calls to them just to distribute information. Also, the information is given at the senior curbside meals. Okay, for the library, you can see the stats here for February are listed, and then the very last bullet point is about a book club that just started a couple of days ago. It's the In and Out Book Club running March 6th to April 7th. So basically reading a book cover to cover, and you're given a coupon for a hamburger, cheeseburger from In-N-Out. Also, you can see that Women's History Month display feature is there at the library as well. For parks and facilities, the Michael Nagar Community Park, there's a couple of updates there for the courts. LED lights have been retrofitted, or are going to be, excuse me. So right now, just finalizing design and quote, anticipation retrofit in July later this year. Also for Friendship Park, the basketball and tennis courts are scheduled to be resurfaced in April. And a new sign is underway, probably going to be done mid-April as well. And for some playground replacement updates, you can see the 4 parks listed there. Winchester Creek opening March 10th. Stephen Michael Lennon Jr. Memorial Park construction is already completed, so it's already open. Friendship Park will be complete late April, and Sam Hicks, they anticipate construction to begin in May. For sports and park rangers, because of new guidelines that are in place with cases dipping below 14 per 100,000 people, youth and adult sports can resume competitive play with following guidelines, of course. So the city's recognized youth leagues and non-recognized youth leagues and other paying user groups are excited to get their season started. And so Community Services has requested that all leagues participating in a program on a city field or facility sign an assumption of risk waiver related to COVID-19, and also in an agreement related as well to COVID-19 before they can begin actually playing on the fields. So the local recognized youth leagues will begin this week. And we also have soccer starting the last week of March. And also internally, the city staff are working hard to get the city-sponsored adult softball league up and running, hopefully by the first week of April. For a park ranger update, they continue to be busy, of course. A lot of people are outside, and so lots of changes to CDC guidelines, homeless activity increase, pump track and skate park activity, and just day-to-day enforcement of park rules and education of park rules are keeping the rangers really, really busy. And the extra support from the theater staff has commenced, has been greatly, greatly appreciated by the sports staff. And that concludes my portion of the report. I'm available to answer any questions if anyone has any.
Thank you, Leah. Really appreciate the report out. Let's start with Vice Chair.
Never know which order you're going to go in there, so it's the kind of the anticipation game. Leah, thanks for the report there. Love your enthusiasm and energy. I did have just a couple of questions and then a couple of comments. Questions would be going back to the virtual 5K that you brought up. What is the fee to participate in that?
That is $10 per person, and we are offering a $2 discount for a group of 2 or more. And what you get for that fee is a TCSD water bottle, and then a choice of a cooling neck towel / gaiter, like a face covering. Or we have another item, it's a collapsible bag, like a reusable bag.
Cool, okay, awesome, thank you. And then on the homeless outreach, you mentioned monthly meetings. Are these like when they used to do public meetings where they were meeting with the public, or are those monthly meetings just internal amongst Hot and Swag and everybody there?
That's what it is with some of our partnering organizations. It's actually staff, the Hot Team, Swag, Project Touch, and Community Mission of Hope. So they're the agencies that really work together to complement each other's services.
Gotcha, but it's not the old meet the hot team at a local coffee shop kind of a meeting.
No, at some point I would imagine we'll go back to that once some of these restrictions are lifted. But for now, no, that's just more internally.
Gotcha, thank you. Then just 2 other comments. I know, I mean, you guys all know how big into sports I am, and I know how busy the team has been just navigating through 2020 and trying to keep everything up and running. And with the restrictions being lifted, I know just about every sport that's out there is anxious to get back out. And I can't imagine the workload that's going into that and trying to accommodate everybody. So I just wanted to publicly thank the sports team and the park rangers and everyone involved with getting that out. It's beautiful for me to drive around and see parks starting to fill up again and high school sports kind of starting up again. And I know there's a lot involved with that. So I just wanted to publicly thank everybody for their work and efforts in getting that going. And then my last comment would be maybe just an invitation to my fellow commissioners, since we haven't had a ton of opportunity to really see or interact in person. If you watch the last video of Meet the Commissioners, you'll see that one of the favorite things I got to do last year was the senior meal distribution on Friday morning. And I think I'd like to do that again. And I would just open the invitation if any commissioners want to join me. Maybe we can pick a day that works out and be out there and participate in that. It's a smooth running machine, but it's really nice to come out and see all the faces and see the appreciation of the seniors that are receiving the meals. Only takes a couple of hours, and I would welcome the company. So I'm just going to throw that out there. If you're interested in doing that, please feel free to reach out to me. And Mr. Chair, that will conclude my comments. Leah, thank you again.
All right, thank you, Adam. Let's roll over to Commissioner Sizemore.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Wow, all I can say is February, the TCSD has been very, very busy and a lot of activities. I did want to ask a question on communication in regards to the spring 5K. Has that been communicated out on the social media outlets already?
That is scheduled for this Wednesday to go on TCSC's Facebook and Instagram. And we've also sent it out to Murrieta School District and Temecula School District through Peach Jar. And a press release is scheduled for tomorrow.
Awesome, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I wanted to ask a question on the homeless outreach. You had mentioned that the winter warm-up areas where they can come in to get warm is going to be closing the end of the month. Just projecting into the summer months, is there an option that the city has available for helping our homeless population during the summer when it gets too hot? Are there cooling shelters during a certain season?
No, thank you for the question, Commissioner Sizemore. So the winter shelter, I don't want to be confused with the warm center that's at the senior center. So it is a shelter for them overnight. It's really billed as an inclement weather shelter. So it's for the evening, overnight. It's not during the daytime. The senior center would have the cooling center during the summer, and I believe that's open really to anybody.
Okay. All right. And
yeah, just to clarify that is correct, that the senior center, we host the cooling center and the warm center depending on the season, and they are open to anyone who would like to come in during daytime hours.
Okay. All right. Thank you. You also mentioned that park rangers are really busy. Is this kind of a seasonal thing we're seeing, or is there activity increasing that they potentially might need an increase in staffing?
There's silence. It's like,
sorry.
Yes, we're in favor. No, this is our rangers are always busy. They're ambassadors, but they've been thrust, like everyone, into various roles, trying to not overstep, but be reminders of guidelines and safe practices, but still allowing folks to enjoy. And I know Chris is probably, I know he has to deal with it in his agency, and it's a fine balance. But well, after we go through the budget, and I guess we'll share any staffing needs, but I think we're really cognizant of coming out of the impacts of COVID and the economic impacts, and any staffing requests will be kind of just really weighed and prioritized. Yes, we would like to expand our rangers, but just in terms of a priority, that wouldn't be our immediate priority at this time. But thank you for at least inquiring. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I have been seeing the statistics that you send in the daily reports. Recently, you sent a statistic on how many meals have been served at the senior center since March 20th, 2020. And that number is just astounding and inspiring. As I look through everything that Temecula has done this past month in TCSD, just Temecula Cares is a theme that just runs through everything. And I would gladly join Commissioner Ruiz to help out with the meal distribution. I think that would be a fantastic opportunity. Thank you. Back to you, Chair Levine.
Thanks, Commissioner. Let's go, Commissioner Adi.
Thank you, Chair. No questions tonight, Leah, but want to make just a couple of comments. And first of all, thank you so much for a fantastic presentation. I just think that here we are, and happy International Women's Day, by the way, to everybody. And we are here during Women's Month, and somebody like Leah steps up to the plate and just keeps reminding us of how deep our talent is in CSD. And just a great job tonight, Leah, and just a great job every day for CSD. And thanks for representing. I did want to comment on one comment that Commissioner Ruiz brought up. He was talking about the transition into sports coming back. And I've had the privilege of being on the committee with James, and he has been on top of it all along. Even though we haven't been out there on the fields, they are prepping and getting ready, and it's not easy, but he's been on top of that, and it should be a pretty seamless transition. It's just exciting to see all the departments, what they're doing as they transition back right now from the pandemic. And this transition is pretty exciting to see things starting to come back as we get back and reopen. And that's it for tonight, Chair. Oh yeah, I'm in with Chair Ruiz too on the meal day. I'm there, senior meal handouts.
If I can just jump in real quick on the senior meals, if you just let us know, we'll just coordinate with Yvette just to make sure we're all on the same page. But we're really excited to have you guys come on out for that.
Good clarification. Thanks, Erica. And then Commissioner Krastevsky.
First off, I just want to say thank you, Leah, for the excellent presentation. Very informative. Again, you guys are doing a terrific job. I had a question, and this might be more directed towards Mike, but we got an email for the homeless census showing that there was about 89 total individuals. And I was just wondering whether the census is similar or different than the point in time count that normally happens, what the similarities or differences are. And then I had a follow-up question to that.
Sure. No, great question. Actually, it's not the same. It's the census is much more comprehensive, more exhausting. Actually, it's over 2 days, where the pit and time count is typically just 1 day. And we also did different times. So one day we did in the morning. The next day we went into in the later afternoon to early evening and visited some of the same spots, but then it also allowed us, like in the morning, to focus on encampments. And then later in the day, some of the spots that maybe we typically won't see them in the morning, but they may be out later in the day. Also, the point in time count, it's only an unsheltered count. They do have a separate sheltered count, but they work directly with shelter providers. And it's after the fact. So our numbers, a census is typically going to show higher numbers than the pit count, just because of the nature of it. So yeah, that is the two main differences.
Thank you for that clarification. That totally makes sense. So had we done a census in the past? I think the email said that there was a slight increase in the number of people counted in the census.
So the in the email I believe you're referencing was the recap that came from the city manager, I believe. So
Correct. Yeah.
the increase was really from last year's point in time count. So the numbers were higher than last year's point in time count. But a couple different factors. Again, the census is typically going to have a higher count, and then also just since last year, we have had some staff turnover. We didn't have swag under contract for about 6 months until they recently just came back in mid-January. So we have done a census in the past. It was done under a previous staff and a previous contractor. And their numbers were, the top of my head, it was 105, I believe. So our numbers are actually lower than it was at that time, though.
Oh, that's terrific. Now, have you noticed, and this is my follow-up question, Mike, have you noticed an influx of people from other areas, or is it mostly people who have been here in Temecula or are Temecula locals that are, whether they're newly homeless or not?
Another great question. So the majority of them are longer term. That was actually one of the questions on the census, was asking how long they have been in this area, just so we can determine, are they just truly a transient that is probably just passing by a week or two here, or are they some of our longer term? So we did have a little bit of a combination of both, but the large majority were ones that have been here. I believe it was pretty typical, like the lowest would be 1 to 3 months and then longer. So if it was less than a month, we had some that one of the questions even could have been a week. And so those are typically more our true transients by nature that are passing through.
That makes sense. Thanks, Mike. The only other comment I had was similar to Vice Chair Ruiz. I'm very excited about sports starting up. All 3 of my kids are on wait lists for TVSA, so I'm hoping they get in. I even volunteered to be a coach, so we'll see what happens. Keep you guys posted, but I'm very excited about sports starting up again.
Great, thanks, Commissioner. And for myself, once again, thank you, Leah. Great report out. I love the innovation with the busy bags, the theme box, virtual 5K. I mean, the city seems to do it all. And, and I was struck by your note about the cooking lesson, you guys are continuing to find ways to reach out and engage the youth. And I think that's awesome. And I think that just the last thing to comment on from my perspective is, I think there were 2 street exits for the month of February, or maybe 2 for this month so far. But I did see the note where it's 8 for the year today, which I think is fantastic. And so, again, thanks, Mike, to your team for all that you guys are doing to do your part. And I think with that, I will move it on. Let's move on to Brittany. I'm excited.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Brittany Say, and I'll be presenting the Cultural Arts, Community Relations, Special Events, and Rentals Division Report. Let's start with ACE. Julie Munson, a local portrait artist and frequent exhibitor at Art Off the Walls, is our current virtual gallery artist. Guests can visit the museum's virtual gallery page to view Julie's beautiful family and pet portrait paintings. Next slide, please. Now broadcasting from Community Outreach. Around and About Temecula episode number 23 was released on February 23rd. This month's show was Get to Know Your CSD Commissioners and highlighted all 5 of you, as well as City Council member and TCSD President Zach Schwenk. Park Adventures series episode number 5, Loma Linda Park, was released and has over 4,000 views in less than a month. Filming for the next episode of Park Adventures series has concluded and just went live. In this one, we are traveling to John McGee Park, which was recently renovated and has an Old Town Temecula theme. Next slide, please. My personal favorite special events. Our Valentine's craft video starring Tracy Courts received over 298 views. Temecula Care's 21-day challenge for a healthy body and mind currently has 130 participants. We have been receiving photos and just announced our first 5 prize winners this past Saturday. A virtual St. Patrick's Day concert is scheduled to premiere March 12th at 7 p.m. on Facebook featuring Celia and Mulligan Stew. Next slide, please. Dancing on over to the theater. The theater and TVM joined for a month-long virtual celebration of American Black history. The theater premiered 4 impactful virtual presentations. Bayard, a new musical, reached 2,097 patrons on Facebook and received 326 views on YouTube. Next slide, please. Temecula Presents Student-Led Arts Education Internship Program concluded its 3rd annual production with James and the Giant Peach. All participants in the free program will receive a DVD of the performance as a keepsake since they could not perform for a live audience. Next slide, please. And finally, let's head to the Temecula Valley Museum. TVM continues to adapt the monthly cultural celebration, second Saturday. For February, the museum traveled virtually celebrating the country of Costa Rica. We invited guests to experience Costa Rica in the pure vida spirit of life through activities including crafts, recipes, cultural facts, amazing virtual tours, and a free live-streamed art lesson provided by Bigfoot Art Classes. 17 participants enjoyed learning to draw and paint a toucan. Next slide, please. In celebration of Black History Month, we offer links on the museum's website featuring music, history, culture, food, art, and a virtual photography exhibit, Through Darkness to Light, photographs along the Underground Railroad. Next slide, please. Students, teachers, and parents gathered in Sam Hicks Monument Park to reveal the new student mural project. If you haven't seen it yet, stop by and check it out. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thank you, Brittany. And I think we'll just go in reverse order from before. So we'll start with Commissioner Chris.
Thank you, Brittany, for that report. It's terrific. Yeah, my only comment is I really enjoyed the Through Darkness to Light photo exhibit. It was terrific and just very, very informative and powerful. So yeah, I really appreciate that the city put that forward and hosted it. So thank you.
Great. Moving on to Commissioner Adi.
Thank you so much, Brittany. I was happy to see some of the things that I actually got to get out and do, which is another encouraging sign. So thank you for doing that. And just thank you again, joining Leah tonight and representing and just, again, reminding us of the great talent we have here. The slide that's up right now, Michael Lyden Jr. Memorial Park was able to get out, see the opening, and that's a pretty special place. We have my grandchildren there a couple times already, and they really love the theme. The fire, the first responders theme is just excellent. I also, as Commissioner Kostefsky said, got a chance to see Through Darkness and Light to Light in person, and just really, really powerful and amazing stuff, just amazing and emotional program over there museum. So thanks again, Brittany. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Sizemore.
Thank you, Chair Levine. Let's see, around and about Temecula. Wow, 4,000 views for Loma Linda Park. That's a lot. That's amazing. I really enjoyed having all 3 of those videos unveiled here in this past month. Great job to Jeff Lawrence and his team. The 21-day challenge. I am having fun with that. I don't know if my husband's having fun with it because I keep dragging him around to different things. But we're having a lot of fun with that. I really appreciate the city coming up with that. As you know, as spring is coming, it's something to help encourage us to get outdoors and recreate, and a little bit of self-care and reflection in there, which after the events of the past year are much needed and appreciated. I did have, I had an opportunity to visit the Through Darkness to Light exhibit at the Temecula Valley Museum. So thank you to Tracy for making that a possibility. It was a very moving exhibit. And I remember going to the museum multiple times with my kids when they were little to visit the history exhibits there. And I would love to have it communicated so that people realize that you have these moving exhibits that such as Through Darkness to Light. And I want to thank Tracy. She spent some time sharing with me a vision for the future of the museum and the future for arts in Temecula, some projects that could potentially happen. And it's very exciting, and it's needed and wanted in this city. So I'm excited to see that happen. The mural, the student mural, that was a great to see. A great opportunity for our student artists to have an opportunity to experience creating that mural. And I was so impressed with Felicia, the young lady who spearheaded the leadership of the project. Whew, that girl's going somewhere. And what an opportunity for these students to get to have a project like this, and they're not even out of high school. I did want to just question, or one of my thoughts about the mural was that I want to make sure it's protected, that it can't be vandalized. And that was one of my concerns. Is those kids put a lot of work into it, and I know there are tough lessons to learn in life, but that's not one that they need to learn. So I'd like to see if there's anything that can be done to make sure that any murals put there are protected from damage.
Thank you, Commissioner Sizemore. I want to mention that it is a temporary exhibit, so anything can happen, whether, I mean, it's on paper, it's not really on anything long lasting. However, our commitment is to protect it, to make sure that there's a security camera on it. Kevin saw to that immediately. So it is being watched. And if anything were to happen, we would be, aware. We also have a park ambassador, Haifa, who has been at the senior center, is now transitioning to the museum. She's spending a lot of time in interacting with the public and being around a presence outside for other negative elements and, for things not to happen that we don't want to happen in our newly renovated park. So we're taking evening and day approaches to protect our valuable assets. And then our hope is for all of these temporary art murals to then hopefully travel or to go to other places, because once they come down, they will become then the property back to the artist. If they don't want to use it somewhere, then we would like to then perhaps display it elsewhere, versus just roll it up and stick it in a drawer, so it should be seen, it should be celebrated, and it should be shared.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the city jumping on it and organizing their where people are working to keep a watch on that. I did have the pleasure of meeting the lady that's watching over the park, and she was very helpful and informative and welcoming there. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. And we will round it out with Vice Chair Ruiz.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Part of the thing always going last is a lot of great comments have already been made. I said this before, and I will repeat myself again. Brittany, nice report there. And I always appreciate the fact that we get a chance to hear from new people and meet, the team that's working on stuff. I look forward to that every single month. Who's going to give the report, and it's usually a new name or a new face, and especially in this virtual setting, it's nice to be able to still meet new people that are part of the team. So I really appreciate that. The only thing I will add a comment on is the Park Adventure Series videos. I remember when that was first brought up, and I thought how cool of an idea that was to see that it's averaging, just under 5,000 views a month. Clearly, I'm not the only one, and that's amazing to see that we have a success like that. I think every video that Jeff and his team put out have had really good numbers, but an ongoing park series about all the different parks, not even the big ones, some of the small ones, some of the hidden gems that we didn't even realize was a park, or I can't remember which one it was that Jeff made the comment that there's actually 2 parks that he wasn't even aware of. So just some of those little nuances I think are super cool that we're able to feature, and obviously the public agrees with the views that we're getting. So kudos to Jeff and his team.
Thank you. That was an idea that we had a long time ago, and it was during this pandemic that we realized now we can visit all 40 plus parks. So we wanted to do that. We had it in mind. It was on the back burner. It moved forward, and we're excited. There's many more parks, and by the time we're done, there'll be new parks. So I know a lot of realtors are using our videos to help promote Temecula as a city and as a great place to live, play, work, and, raise a family. So we're excited that the videos and the communications that are coming out of our department will have a lifespan beyond our careers. So, and Jeff is a natural, and Mike is just a wizard. So we're very lucky.
Well, it really is. I mean, you mentioned realtors, obviously that's my background as well, but everyone knows about, the big parks, but all these other little hidden parks, I think, is what really showcase a lot more about what Temecula does have to offer. We're not necessarily fighting, I've been to other cities where they only have maybe 1 or 2 parks, and, it's nice to see that it's crowded, but it's crowded and you can't always get out and do what you want to do. So to know that we have options for everybody, that's probably not much of a drive or a walk even to get to a different park is amazing. And now we're finally able to showcase it.
Right. And normally parks are listed in alphabetical order. We decided to showcase them based on the date of incorporation. So we're starting from the earliest all the way to the more recent. So that's our strategy.
Very cool. Well, good job. Keep it up.
Thanks, Vice Chair. And, Brittany, just want to thank you again. It's great to see, as Vice Chair Ruiz says, our folks getting these opportunities to report out, and in someday, you might be running this department, right? And it all started with reporting out in these once a month meetings. But seriously, it's been a busy month once again. I appreciate your report. And, I wanted to give a special shout out to a couple of things. First of all, to the commissioners. I think nearly all of you had attended the Darkness to Light. I'm hoping to get there this week yet, but super proud of you guys for getting out there. I appreciated all of the around and about Temecula presentations that all of you participated in. And again, special kudos to Jeff and Mike. That was awesome. And you guys also showed up really big for the first responder park, the Stephen Linen. I'm not sure. Does anybody know what the pronunciation is?
It's Linen.
It is Linen. Okay. So I appreciate you guys getting out to that. Unfortunately, I had a conflict that day as well. But again, Brittany, appreciate your report out tonight. And I think we'll just move on to the consent calendar. All right, all matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine and all will be enacted by one roll call vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless members of the Community Services Commission request specific items be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. We have one item to discuss this evening, and that is to approve the action minutes of February 8th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
And a second?
I'll second.
All right.
I have a motion on the table by Commissioner Adi and a second by Vice Chair Ruiz. We'll now go into a roll call vote. Commissioner Krastevsky,
Aye.
Commissioner Adi,
Aye.
Commissioner Sizemore,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruiz,
Aye.
Chair Levine.
Aye.
We have a 5-0 reflecting a unanimous vote approval.
Easy. Then I will sign it and send it in tomorrow's post. Thank you. All right, then moving on to business. We have a business item, the business engagement session that I believe Director Hennessy and Ms. Hawk are here to report out on, and I will turn it over their way. Is there any comments before they take it, Director Hawkins?
Not really. Well, I'll have some comments, I guess, during my director's report, but finance and led by Director Hennessy is definitely a friend of our department. I think you've heard in various council meetings that the department's been acknowledged for their governmental and financial reporting from GFOA and some of the others. And so that reflects the leadership. And so I know they'll provide a great presentation. They've been supportive. So all the great outcomes that you hear from our shop, you know, their support from finance usually in allowing us to make it happen. So with that, I'll give it over to Director Hennessy.
Great, thanks, Kevin. So I have a PowerPoint that I will share with you all right now. 1 second. All right. Let's play that. Play. There it goes. All right, well, thanks for having, oh.
I'm so sorry to jump in. We do have a public comment on this item.
Do you want to wait till after the presentation or before?
That's your call. I thought we had to read them before, but it's entirely up to you.
Why don't we take it afterwards?
Okay, so sorry.
That's okay. Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having us tonight. I am Jennifer Hennessy, the Director of Finance, and I also have on the call tonight Trisha Hawk. She is our budget manager, and we both are available for any questions you have at the end of the presentation. And it shouldn't take long. It's about 15 minutes or so. And then we'll have some discussion questions for you at the end that hopefully you've received ahead of time. And we will go through whatever questions or comments you might have at that time. So we'll start and look at the big picture of the overall budget process, and then I'll discuss a few key budget policies that impact the development of the budget and the CIP. We'll look at the 2021, fiscal year 2021 highlights from the operating budget as well as the capital improvement program, and then discussion questions at the end, as I mentioned. So our budget process really starts in January when we look at the current year's budget, and we also update the 5-year financial projections for the general fund, Measure S fund, and TCSD fund. And then in February, we bring a mid-year budget update to the council, and that is for the current year. And it includes any adjustments that we know of that need to be made to the current year's budget. For instance, this year, we had to make quite a few adjustments because of the ongoing pandemic and what impact that has had to our finances. Also in February, we kick off the next fiscal year's budget and capital improvement program process. And this year we've added in February and in March, these budget engagement sessions. We're meeting with each board and commission to give this brief PowerPoint and discuss the questions that we have at the end. And this is something that we added this year to our process in response to both council members, particularly Councilmember Schwenk, requested last year that we engage the council and commissions earlier on in the budget process. And then we also have an oversight committee or oversight agency, I should say, which is the Government Finance Officers Association. And they've updated and changed their best practices to include more public engagement, council and commission engagement throughout the process. So that's what brings us here tonight. In the March-April timeframe, that's when each department director and their budget analysts and staff are developing the proposed annual operating budget and the proposed CIP. And then the council budget workshop is held in May of each year, and that's where we present the proposed budget and CIP. And then in the first meeting in June, that's where they adopt the annual budget and the CIP. And then throughout the year, finance does ongoing analysis of budget versus actuals on both revenues and expenditures so that we can understand any trends that are occurring or any adjustments that might need to be made throughout the year. There's several tools that we rely upon to get information to build our priorities and build that into the budget document and into our recommendations. The main one is this middle one, which is any prior year projects that are not quite complete and they carry over into the current year. We want to prioritize that funding first so that those projects can get complete. Every couple of years, we do a community satisfaction survey, and that'll be going out here shortly. My understanding is for this year. The boards and commissions feedback, we talked about that, added that to the process. And then we have a number of master plans for different programs and different services. I know the community services master plan was recently updated. So information and recommendations from each of those plans will be looked at when we're developing our operating budget and our CIP recommendations. And then finally, some city council policies impact how we build the budget as well. So the key deliverables throughout the budget process, we start with what's called our preliminary budget. And this is an internal document that contains all of the departmental requests, and that's presented to the city manager in the March-April timeframe. And then the city manager goes through and approves or doesn't approve the departmental requests. And all the recommendations that he is recommending is built into what's called the proposed budget. And that's what's presented to council at their May budget workshop. And that's where we will incorporate any commentary or recommendations from these budget engagement sessions into that proposed budget that's presented to council. And then any changes that council has from their budget workshop, we incorporate into what's called the adopted budget. And that's presented again in June, the first meeting in June. And then once that's adopted, it becomes what's known as our final operating budget and capital improvement program. There's a few budget policies that impact how we recommend programming additional funds. So in the general fund, when we close out the fiscal year, we calculate the ending fund balance. And after we have met our reserve policy amounts to set aside for an emergency reserve, anything that is in excess of that is called available general fund balance. And the council adopted appropriation priorities for that available one-time money. So it's considered, it's similar to putting money in a savings account. So it's a one-time deposit of funds. Their priorities laid out in the budget policies are first and foremost to provide public safety equipment or non-recurring programs. And then secondly, put the money towards asset management reserves. And asset management is basically set aside little savings accounts so that we accumulate funds to replace city assets as they wear out or extend through their useful life. So for instance, if the roof on City Hall starts to leak, we will have these funds set aside that we can utilize those funds to repair the roofs or replace the fleet, things of that nature. The third priority is to appropriate the funds towards a capital improvement project. The fourth is to reduce unfunded liabilities that relate to the CalPERS pension or other post-employment benefits. These would be one-time lump sum pay downs of those liabilities. And then finally, a reduction or avoidance of city debt. The Measure S appropriation guidelines were adopted by the council back in 2017 when we started to receive Measure S funds. And the prioritization there is first is to public safety, second is asset management, and then capital improvement projects, and then finally general services, most of which is community services funding. And you can see the pie chart here. This is our most up-to-date projection of Measure S. So we are appropriating just under $37 million. And you can see that half of that is going towards capital projects and about 24% is going towards general services or TCSD. And then we're setting aside $3.5 million into asset management funds and then public safety, a little over $6 million. And as you can imagine throughout time, as the cost of public safety increases and the cost of general services increases, that'll leave less funding available for capital projects. So touching on the general fund, this is our current updated projection as of February. And general fund revenue is projected to come in at about $79.5 million this year. What's key to note on this chart here is that the black line, which represents revenues, is above or exceeding the blue expenditure bar. That indicates that we are fiscally balanced each year, not only this year, but 5 years out into the future based on our current projections. And then our general fund expenditures as of February will total $79.3 million for this fiscal year. Again, the majority of the funds are spent towards public safety, with 45% dedicated to police and 13% dedicated to fire, and the rest, as you could see on the chart there. And then finally on the general fund, this chart represents our ending fund balance, the desired reserve, and the reserve that is funded. So we are projecting to have an ending fund balance of $27.7 million this year. And of that, we have nearly $19 million in reserve. So our desired reserve on the chart is indicated by the yellow diamond. And you can see that the black line, which is the funded reserve, meets that desired level each and every year, even throughout the 5-year forecast. So this is pretty remarkable, especially given the economic times that we're in. When we did this budget update this time last year, not fully understanding the impacts of COVID, we did anticipate having to dip into our reserves to balance the general fund both this year and next year. However, sales tax and Measure S funds have done better than originally forecasted. So we no longer are projecting that we'll need to rely on reserves to balance the budget. So that's good news. Next slide. So we have, this is a highlight of our capital improvement program. We have a very robust CIP, as you can see, over $623 million in projects. But what's even more remarkable of that is that $514 million of that is funded, meaning we've identified a funding source, the money is secured, it's programmed. Just a little over 109 million is unspecified, meaning that we still have to identify a funding source for that project. You can see the breakout. We categorize CIP projects by type. So we have circulation, infrastructure, parks and rec, and then SARTA, which stands for the successor agency to the redevelopment agency, but predominantly it's for housing purposes. 84 projects in total. Here are the major projects by type. So we have 25 circulation projects. The biggest one that is most well known is the French Valley Parkway Phase 2. That one includes that $50 million grant that we got from the federal government last year. The Nicholas Road extension and improvements, pavement rehab projects, that's where they redo the surface streets. We have ongoing projects there that roll over from year to year. And then the I-15 congestion relief project is in there, and then several traffic signal improvements. Infrastructure projects, there's a total of 41, totaling just under $75 million. The Margarita Rec Center, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, that is in there at 8.6 million. A CRC renovation is in there at 5 million. And then the Santa Gertrudis Creek Trail extension, 6.3 million, and the fiber optic communication system upgrade, 1.3. And then Parks and Rec projects. So we have 16 projects totaling just under 26 million. The larger ones here that I'm listing are the CRC splash pad and shade structures, community services master plan that's been completed, the Eagle Source splash pad control system renovation, and then playground and equipment enhancements. I know you mentioned earlier how the Stephen Lennon Park just reopened. The Sam Hicks Park playground was just remodeled. And this is an ongoing project that we have where we dedicate funding for anywhere from 2 to 4 park renovations per year. And then finally, we have, there's 3 total projects. I've listed 2 of them here. One is a Las Haciendas affordable housing project, a little over $10 million. That's utilizing some former redevelopment agency bonds to build that project. And then the Vine Creek Affordable Housing Project at $2.7 million. And then we have a third project that's just a placeholder. They haven't identified an actual project for it just yet. So that wraps up the presentation. Here are the discussion questions. The first one being, as a commissioner, do you feel that the city's investment of financial resources is in line with the community's priorities? And if yes, which programs or projects are most beneficial to our community? And then if not, how could the city better align its spending with community priorities? So I will stop sharing my screen unless anybody had a question on any particular slide. Nope.
Director, I do have one question and really just clarification on the infra grant, that $50 million. Is that something that we have already taken possession of? Or is that something that when we go to pay, it just goes through a different process for funding?
We've been awarded the grant. However, it's a reimbursement grant. So we have not spent that money just yet. So we will get it once we spend down that project.
Okay, thank you. So who would like to go first? Let's start with Commissioner Adi.
Okay, I would like to go first. Thank you, Chair. Director Hennessy, thank you so much for a great presentation. To get all that in a real short presentation is pretty awesome. We got a good understanding of what the process looks like. Answer to question 1, I would say yes. If you are basing, the process of building the budget on those 5 priorities that you showed, we are definitely meeting the needs of the community. Now, beyond that, I have some questions as we go through to see what is actually coming out in those priorities, such as meeting with commissions and looking at master plans and so forth. On number 2, just really wanted to highlight one thing that I think shows that we're doing really well. I found that, looking at Summers Bend, the newest development, I think it can be used as a model in many ways. It has so many great things that they're doing, but I would like to see more of some of their concepts brought into, our budgeting as we look at our master plans. One of the things is that you basically separating circulation and infrastructure when you itemize some budget lines. And within Summers Bend, it's a good example of how you can take circulation and include infrastructure strategies that improve that circulation. So they've included, a great deal of, roads and also active transportation in their small plan. So those are just a couple of things on number 2. And then number 3, just the areas of note that I just talked about is, when you look at circulation plans, I know we've done this, but I would like to see in the future that we really look at involving active transportation and alternative transportation a lot more in our circulation plans. As we move forward in the 21st century, we are such a car-driven transportation culture, but we are moving. There are some trends that are moving us toward active transportation, alternative transportation, and already got infrastructure in place that is not quite meeting those needs. So we really have to work hard once we've developed infrastructure that is not moving us forward into the future, and we need to really look at correcting those mistakes as we go forward. In any new projects, I think it would be unacceptable to not involve transportation without involving alternative transportation. I think when you look at our master plan, I would draw your attention as you review the master plan, would really want to draw your attention to item 6 on the recommendations of the CSD master plan. And in item 6, they really focus on, it's kind of teed up by the California Roundtable on Recreation, where they say that numerous studies document that children who do these things are healthier. And then they list some items. Within those items, what jumps out to me is exposure, exploring nature, ride a bike, follow a trail, so plant a seed. So these are all things that as we look at, I know you've taken on also kind of a urban forest project too. And as we look at infrastructure, we can look at our open spaces and how we connect them with our bike trails. But most importantly, in that item 6, it is recommended that the trails, connectivity of trails, bike trails, mountain bike park, trailheads, walking trails, and so forth are the highlight in item 6 of the master plan. So I really would hope that you would look in detail what the recommendations are in item 6 when you are building the budget this year. Director Hennessy, I really appreciate your time and taking our comments and giving me the opportunity to participate with the commission in this discussion.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Roddy. And Commissioner Kristevsky.
Director Hennessy, that was an excellent presentation. Crystal clear. I think you made the entire process just very straightforward and easy to follow. So thank you for your report. It's interesting that Commissioner Audi touched on the active transportation because those were my thoughts exactly. I manage a 3,200 acre open space preserve for the city of Escondido, and it's one of the community's most important assets. Now, I know we might not have the same opportunities here in Temecula, but I agree with Commissioner Audi that active transportation and open spaces and connectivity are are so important to the community. So following the questions that you had posed to us, I'd say as a community services commissioner, I do feel that the city's investments of financial resources are in line with the community's priorities. So yes, I would say absolutely. For question 2, which programs, projects are most beneficial? I'd say you guys are doing a terrific job allocating funds to areas that need it, especially general services like parks and recreation and other things like that. The one request that I would have as a commissioner, in line with Commissioner Adi, is maybe take it a step further and look at land acquisition for preservation of open spaces, just so that as population density increases in Temecula, we don't get left holding the bag and just have this concrete jungle without any places where our kids and community can go and enjoy nature and the native plants and species that we have here. I mean, we're blessed to have Santa Rosa Preserve so close by, but I mean, there are still open tracts of land in Temecula, and I think we can as a city, especially with all the extra funds that we have sometimes at the end of the year, we can look at acquiring some of these lands and preserving them rather than developing them. That's the only comment that I have.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Sizemore.
Yes, thank you for including us in this. Being new to the commission, I am learning there is a lot behind running a city. And things cost a lot more than I think they would. Very, very, very eye-opening. Looking at the questions you've given us, number 1, do I feel that the city's investment of financial resources is in line with the community's priorities? I would say yes. The number 1 thing I hear from others, and I see on social media, people talking about safety, public safety seems to be a very big priority in our city, and I would echo it's a priority for myself. Which programs, projects do I feel would be most beneficial to our community? I would definitely echo what the other commissioners are saying about active transportation. I grew up in Orange County where you could just catch one of the riverbed trails, and you could take that all the way from Orange County up to LA. And we do 25-mile bike rides on a Saturday, and that's one of the things I've missed and wanted to have here in Temecula is more of a bike trail and more of a connectivity. So that I would echo that being a beneficial project. Also, I saw it on the list. I am hearing more and more from people in the community about exploring lower income housing options in our community. And I think that does need to be a priority for the city to start exploring, continue exploring. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Commissioner. Vice Chair.
Yep, thanks, Director Hennessy, for that report. There's obviously a lot that goes into the budget, and I remember reading through some of them even in years past, and the explanation that you provided would have made it a whole lot easier probably a couple of years ago. So I definitely appreciate that. And I do remember last year at, I don't know what meeting it was exactly, but discussing the budget and having to potentially dip into reserves to keep everything moving along. So to hear that we didn't need to do that is just commendable, and another thing I think that makes Temecula really special. Comments on the questions there. Question number 1, I would say yes. I think the priorities that are laid out there are definitely in line with what our community is looking for. Most beneficial to the community, personally, I would say, I guess both of these, everything would be as a resident or as a visitor, but I think public safety by far is a priority that everyone needs and expects. And I really use that word expects of response times and service and care. So having that be a number 1 priority, and obviously the number 1 part of the budget, I think that is something that we need to continue to focus on and should continue to focus on. Number two, thinking of it, and I've said this a few times in some of our past meetings, again, as a resident, but also as a tourist destination or tourism destination, I think it's really important that we maintain, like we have, the roads, the quality of roads and the fact that we're doing some repaving. I remember a few years ago, some of the paving projects seemed like they didn't hold very well. So I don't know if we've got a new vendor or what we've done, but it definitely does seem to be better. But roads and parks, to me, really define a city for someone first coming in on what that city has to offer. So someone coming in maybe for the first time, if we've got those taken care of, which we do, I think it really paints a nice picture for us as a city. I'm going to throw my sports hat on and talk about something moving forward. And I mean, if I were to throw out a dream list of what does Temecula need or what are we missing, it's more sports fields, or even like a sports stadium type of a venue. Not only is the need and the demand for fields greater than what we can offer right now and try to keep up with, but there's a lot of financial benefit and economic income that comes from having those fields available. Tournaments, as people come in that are lodging, eating at the restaurant, shopping, and doing all that stuff in the community is really important. So I think if I were to look at what could we potentially look at doing, we're pretty built out, and I understand that. Is there areas that could be repurposed, or is there opportunities that we could maybe expand out and look to provide a little bit more on that on the sports field application would be something that I would like to throw out there. And then I also know it's probably very small in number, but I hope in the proposed budget moving forward that there's money allocated to continue the programs that we've developed through the pandemic, but also bringing back the special events and the parades and the festivals and that kind of stuff. Our community really enjoys those and was disappointed that they had to be canceled, I think, and are definitely looking forward to having those brought back forward. So we kind of shot ourselves in the foot a little bit by being so good with some of these other ideas. So we might have to double up on some things maybe, but I do think that that's something else that that the community really is looking forward to and almost expecting moving forward. And I hope that we can allocate some funds or that we've already planned for that moving forward.
Thanks, Vice Chair. Yeah, Director Hennessy, I think just in conclusion here, there are a lot of tough choices that have to be made. However, I think you and your team have done an outstanding job. I think the way that the budget is managed here, it's very well managed. It's very responsibly, adhered. And that's a credit to you and the entire team. As to your question number one, the city's investment of the financial resources is in line with the community's priorities. And I don't think that there's any question in my mind about that. The projects and programs that are most beneficial to our community really, so many good comments, were made here. Not to repeat, but Commissioner Adi brought up Somers Bend and how they incorporated, the trails and that whole living experience. It was the best of both worlds. Really, just a stroke of genius there. I appreciate that being prioritized. Just recently, Old Town has a dedicated kind of police force there. And that's huge for tourism, for safety. We're redoing the former Margarita Rec Center. That's an important, asset. So again, I think those are just a few of those things that immediately come to mind, and really go back to my point of, you and your team doing an outstanding job managing this. And as to question number 3, how could you better align? Well, I think you're you're doing that, right now, and I appreciate and applaud Councilmember Schwank for bringing this up, and for you guys making the rounds with your team to the various boards and commissions to kind of educate us so that we in turn can educate the rest of, our friends and neighbors in the communities, talk about these things through social media. And, I know that when I first came to this commission in 2015, I'd spent a lot of time in my career up in Walnut Creek, and I've just always been impressed with how that particular, community was just a very active, walking and biking community. And, I'd hoped at some point Temecula could kind of take some of those, clues, and sure enough, it's becoming a reality, right here. And so again, I just appreciate all you and the team are doing, and I appreciate the comments of my colleagues here tonight.
Great. Well, thank you all so very much. I know there was a public comment, so maybe we can hear that.
I do have one public comment regarding the budget, so I'll go ahead and read that now. It's from Mr. Rick Vanderlinden. Dear Chair Levine, members of the Community Service Commission, City of Temecula staff and residents. I, Rick Vanderlinden, am speaking on behalf of the founding members of Bike Temecula Valley, a bicycle coalition. We recognize the importance of community outreach during the budget process, which is why I'm here before you this evening. As members of the Community Services Commission tasked with creating community through people, parks, and programs, we would like to encourage you to invest in projects that support bicycling in our community. Trails, bike parks, and bike lanes all support an active and healthy lifestyle. One's ability to safely enjoy our community by bike is an important component to a healthy body and mind, as well as increasing opportunities for civic engagement. Moreover, seeing Temecula by bicycle exposes riders to many gems in our community that are less apparent when traveling by car. This includes local retailers and small businesses, parks, and neighborhoods that make our city. Over the past year, we have seen an increased interest in biking during the COVID-19 pandemic. People have once again fallen in love with the bicycle. Locally, the success of the Temecula pump track and newly added mini pump track only reinforces the idea that increased funding in bike-specific projects is a solid return on investment. It is important that we understand that the decisions we make today directly impact and influence the city we live in tomorrow. Please use your voice and encourage a dedicated annual funding source for bike-specific projects. We envision a community where everyone feels safe biking in Temecula, connecting our neighborhoods to schools, parks, and businesses. We believe that continuing to improve the bike infrastructure across the city will connect more people with one another and improve the quality of life for all Temecula residents. Respectfully, founding members of Bike Temecula Valley, Dale Borgensen, Gordon Coop, Sean Sampson, George Tamayo, and Rick Vanderlinden. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dominguez. We appreciate Mr. Vanderlinden's comments. All right, moving on. Director's report. Director Hawkins.
Hi, before we leave that, were there any additional action items on that? Jennifer Hennessy, Tricia, that you needed? Was this just receive and file?
Receive and file, and we took notes, so we will summarize these notes and send back to you probably tomorrow. Make sure we captured everybody's comments accurately, and yeah, from that's it. Just thanks again for all your feedback and your commentary. It's all very good, and we'll forward it on to city manager and the council.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess
Mr.
back
Hawk,
to
it's all you.
It's all me. You know, that was very impressive, and like you, Chair, I'm glad that the recommendation was made and championed by TCSD President Swank for this process. I think it's been informative, not just for the commission, but for staff, and I'm sure for the viewing public too. So that's a good thing. Couple of items, and then actually I was taking notes along the way, and so I'm sorry Jennifer, that's probably not included in the recap. You don't need to capture it, but it's just some notes that I took along the way. So just the first thing we talked about, upcoming city council items that may be of interest, kind of TCSD related. There are 2 items that are on the agenda for tomorrow. I believe the first item is, I think, item number 5, and it's really the approval of request to approve an extension of a joint use agreement with Temecula Valley Unified School District, and that's for use of TES, or Temecula Elementary School. As you know, our aquatics program, we do a lot of training out of there, as well as use of the fields. It's really a stopgap. We've talked about it previously, that we're in the process of revisiting all of the joint use agreements, kind of just, again, revisiting, making sure that they're updated. So that's just a continuation that's going to run through the end of the fiscal year. The other item that's kind of under Mike Wooten in Public Works' shop, and I believe that's a request for a minor maintenance agreement with Renee's, and I believe, Mike, that may be used for encampment cleanups and things like that.
Correct.
Yeah. So those are the 2 items in particular. A couple of things. Comments were made previously, and I'll start with Vice Chair Ruiz, and I wanted to actually thank you. You've been very gracious with your praise of city staff, but like everyone, yes, you've been watching what's going on with the sports leagues and the guidelines and things like that too. And you've mentioned that, again, you're very active, and we know that too. But through your support, when you're coming to the team and you're asking the questions, sometimes they're hard questions, but we're providing you with the honest answers, and helping you to navigate, the process. But you're just not taking that information, you're actually disseminating that. And you're acting as an advocate on behalf of the city. And we're all part of the city, we represent and we service the community. And we see the difference, and we see the results, and just in terms of how the leagues and how the community engages and interacts with us. And so I wanted to thank you personally for that. I think all of you have talked about participating in the meal program, and Human Services has been killing it during the past year. And as as Erica pointed out, that can be coordinated through Yvette Martinez. But at the same time, after you get through serving, don't just stop there. Walk on over to Sam Hicks Park and get on the playground equipment like Commissioner Sizemore did, right? And depending on when that happens, and if we have access to the museum, make a day out of it, and if any restaurants are open, stop on by and go to a restaurant. But again, those are amenities that are in that same neighborhood, and we like what's happening there. I was also reminded too, when we talked about the Rangers, and I appreciate, again, just the support that you're right. We're still in COVID, but over the past year, we had to do things that were creative. We didn't have the same level of resources, but through previous investments, just in terms of technology, as well as just investing in the community and getting a lot of credibility, folks knew that we were trying to find a way to yes. And I think that's when we report out on the great reporting by Brittany as well as Leah, that everything that has been shared is that it's our effort to find a way to yes, right? But being very creative, and you're right, the things that we discovered, it's gonna be hard to unring that bell, right? And we're gonna have to integrate those things moving forward, and that's okay. But I was reminded that when we weren't doing some of the performances at the theater too, and we had our back of house personnel, right, who wanted to help and wanted to continue to serve. And so they actually supported and assisted with some of our ranger duties. And so I know Brittany was all over the place, right, from the library to, you know, assisting with some of the meal programs and supporting the district's efforts at some of our sites. So we didn't just kind of stand around. We were doing something that, you know, I think is a conversation I had with Luke Watson, the community development director. And before this, one of the most difficult things to do, I know in his shot, was to focus on long range planning, right? Because you were always so busy with the day to day that you really could not just kind of strategize and think about, you know, down the line, you know, what do we want to do and how can we accomplish it? And, you know, during this past year, we were able to do some of that, right? It's, you know, how can we rethink this and how can we make it better? Some of the things that we've wanted to do, and Bea shared some of those as relates to, you know, Saturdays and things like that. And we have some plans too, to when the museum opens, to make it a more immersive experience, right? We talked about using our staging and you know, back of house expertise and maybe creating these atmospheres and environments for our exhibits and just really elevating it. But you've seen that kind of that strategic planning and long range planning out of each shop, and just very proud of the team and what they've been able to accomplish. Speaking of a couple things, also on Thursday, the department is going to be one of the presenters at the Ready Commission, and various departments have been making their rounds, kind of, you know, city or municipal government 101, and kind of doing overviews of our various departments. And so we're up on Thursday. So and the team is ready to share. There's a lot of overlap between the two commissions. And so so I'm sure you'll be tuning into that. And then, yeah, I always look at Commissioner Adi and kind of on the same page a lot of times. You know, we just came off of Black History Month, and you had a background there, and again, I was going to wish a happy International Women's Day, and it took a couple of notes. So I didn't want to, you know, let this opportunity pass. And again, you know, we've talked about the role of women, and again, coming off the month of Black History Month, and women from Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman for the exhibit, and Ida Wells and things like that. But I was fascinated because, again, today's International Women's Day, but, you know, there was a time when this process or this day actually was extended, and it was officially commemorated as Women's History Week in what I call the other wine country, right? And that's Sonoma County, and that was back in 1978. It was later recognized by the Women's History Alliance in 1980, and then around 1987 actually became a full month of celebration and recognition. And I actually love the description. It's like, by highlighting women who have made a difference in history, it opens up the world of possibilities to young women or girls. And so I'm looking at this screen, right? You know, I have a daughter, and I'm looking at the screen, and one of the things that is never lost on me, especially when we're reporting out, is that, you know, arguably community services is, you know, I'm biased, but it's one of the higher profile departments. And I think we're the best department, definitely the best community services department in the region. But with that, and with all the things and all the impacts that we've talked about and always report out on, it's not lost on me that that Mike and I are the exception. We're not the rule. 75% of our senior management or leadership team is women. So for me, it had always followed that if this department that you on a monthly basis are singing the praises of, that you see kind of the future in the two presenters and Brittany and Leah, right? And you see the role models in terms of Bea and Erica and others, and you have Jennifer and things like that. The future is now, right? And, you know, a lot of times it's simply just not having the opportunity. And I wanted to focus on that because I look at this department as the opportunity to showcase the talent and showcase those who are truly making a difference. And in our case, it's the women. So I thank you all. And that, Mr. Chair, concludes my report.
Well said. You make it really hard to follow. But you know, I think your comments are very poignant and appropriate, and I thank you for them. Let's see, couple more items of business remaining. Looks like commissioner reports. Let's start with Commissioner Sizemore.
Thank you, Chair Levine. You know, I made this big list of all the things I wanted to talk about in a commissioner's report. Fortunately, I had an opportunity to mention pretty much all of them. A lot of things going on in Temecula this month. A lot of things. You guys have been very busy. Thank you for all that you're doing for the community. Yeah. Yep, all my notes, I covered it. Thank you. I was so proud of it. I was prepared and I wrote this big fancy thing and I figured out how many minutes it would be to say it, and I got to say it all.
Sometimes it works out like that, and that's perfectly fine. Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Krastevsky.
I just wanted to say it truly is an honor to be a part of this commission and this department. And so I'm very thankful for the opportunity. And as things open up more and more, and I have more opportunities to actually participate in stuff and events and openings like the Stephen Michael Lennon Jr. Grand opening, that was just phenomenal. It was a great opportunity. My whole family came out, the kids loved it. And yeah, that's what it's all about. You know, I really enjoy being part of those things. I took my kids to the mini pump track and watched my 8-year-old daughter ride around on that, and she just had such a blast. And so I'm just so thankful to live in this community that offers these types of amenities and programs for us, and just keep on doing a good job, guys. You guys are doing a terrific job as a department, and again, I'm honored to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Commissioner Audi.
I think, you know, going through the budget thing tonight, wanted to just highlight one thing that the director said. We went through, you know, we've made these comments about CSD, about all the fantastic things you've done during the pandemic. And Kevin highlighted that tonight with, you know, kind of telling us how people just covered for others, you know, when they had some personnel issues, and they just kept doing stuff, and the numbers reflect that. And the one comment that just says, you know, just says so much about how our city has been managed, is that in a pandemic, we did not have to tap into our reserves. It was just absolutely amazing. And it just gives us so much hope for all of our departments. But, you know, the fact that CSD will continue to be able to do these programs that are in our master plan because of that. Hopefully, you know, good times are on the way, but, you know, we really have a great starting place to get there. And I'll leave my last comment, based on my comments throughout the night. I think if you build it, they will come. You build those great parks and the kids come. You build the pump track and the bike riders come. You build a fantastic theater and people come to participate in programs and watch those shows and the entertainment. You build a great museum and people come. So if I can leave you with one thought, just build those trails and people will come, and it will be great for all aspects of our community. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Chair. Have a great evening.
Thanks, Gary. And last but not least, Vice Chair Ruiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, Director Hawkins, thank you for those kind words. I'm happy to hear that it's helping or maybe making a little bit of an impact there. I think our role truly is to serve as a liaison between the community and the city and the staff. And that you hit the nail on the head. They're not always easy phone calls to pick up or easy questions to ask, but not only have I gained more experience and knowledge on how things work, but I've also, I guess, maybe gained a little bit of both confidence and comfortability to reach out and relay those tough questions and really dig in and then take the information back and just let them know this is really how things are working or where it's done. So I'm happy to continue doing that, and I appreciate your words there. I'd also want to thank, and I believe he might actually be joining us virtually tonight as well, Council Member and TCSD President, Zach Schwenk, just for initiating the budget and bringing it to the commission level. I think the more that we are involved as commissioners, the better we can serve as commissioners. And from the initial drinking from a fire hose tour, when we first got onboarded to the reports every single month. But this is just another huge part of the city process that we're now have been included in. So again, I think that makes us not only better commissioners, better informed, but personally, it makes me feel a little bit more included and just that much more part of the family. So I appreciate that opportunity there as well. To my fellow commissioners, I will reach out to you guys about the meal distribution. I don't know if I can get away for a whole day, but I accept Director Hawkins' challenge, and we'll make sure we visit and support as much of our local businesses and small businesses as possible. And lastly, more of just kind of a formal on the record question, maybe for Director Hawkins, but my understanding is that we will continue to remain meeting virtually until City Council, I guess, decides otherwise. I don't know if that's on a future agenda or not, and realizing that transition won't just happen overnight from going on Zoom to packed chambers. But I know it's been done with, county supervisors and, maybe some other opportunities where we can still socially distance, but be present, in the same room. So I don't know if that's on a future agenda or how we would get that on agenda. Just know that there's at least interest from me in exploring that opportunity, and look forward to being able to do that in the near future.
Yeah, if I can quickly comment, is that commissions follow the leads of the city council, as you know. And I'm sure once a determination is made on in-person in chambers meetings, as well as other facilities, again, next you'll start seeing commissions resume kind of normal operations. I know everyone's going stir crazy, and I get it. But there are other things that need to be done first. But again, your issues, your comments and concerns have been communicated, and I know you shared them directly as well too. So we understand.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Mr. Chair, that concludes my reports for this evening. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Adam. And for myself, reflecting on Black History Month, last year, Director Hawkins, you had sent out a number of, personal, perspectives on various Black leaders and inspirational folks, throughout history. And I really appreciated that last year. And this year, for those who are friends with our Commissioner Adi on Facebook, we were treated to, I think, one per day, if I remember correctly. And I think I'm pretty sure I was able to read nearly all of them, but I just wanted to give you, Commissioner Adi, a shout out for the research. I know your love as of being an educator really showed through, and I appreciate you bringing that out to the rest of the community. So I know it wasn't an official TCSD type thing, but I wanted you to know it was much appreciated from definitely from me, from the bottom of my heart. So thank you for that. And again, today's International Women's Day, and I can count on Commissioner Adi to once again carry the banner. I mean, you're a rock star, and I think again, from my perspective, I've been so fortunate to have so many strong and inspirational women, kind of starting with my own mom, God rest her soul, my wife, and really the women of TCSD. There's so many great inspirational folks to all of us to look up to, and I just wanted to comment on that. And I think just really wrapping things up, I've noticed since we've been on Zoom that we've not only populated our panel list, but we've also had some attendees. And so I wanted to give a shout out to, our colleague, David Maddox from the Traffic Safety Commission. I appreciate him being on here. I think this is a couple months for him. Councilmember Schwank is on here. Rashan Claremont is on. I saw Donna Damiak earlier. And I just appreciate, I know some people are looking at this, live, and some people are looking at this, through the link. And I just appreciate the support. This community services team does a lot, and it's just nice to have some company out here. And with that, I believe I will entertain a motion to adjourn to our next meeting to be held April 12th, 2021.
I guess I'll move adjournment, or we can hang out all night. I don't know which way we want to go. I just
need one.
So I have a motion on the table by Chair Levine with a second by Vice Chair Ruiz. We'll now go into a roll call vote. Commissioner Krastevsky.
Aye.
Commissioner Adi.
Aye.
Commissioner Sizemore.
Aye.
Vice Chair Ruiz.
Aye.
And Chair Levine.
Aye.
Okay, we have a vote of 5-0 reflecting unanimous approval.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.
48.
Take care, everybody.